Welcome. I'm Haunts, or the Unknown Haunts, and also your teacher for today. I've been playing Smite since around early May of 2016 on the PS4, and I started maining Hades very shortly afterwards. He's a whopping 33% of my total games played on my main account, so I think I got a bit of an idea of what I'm talking about. Anyways, this guide will be covering Hades, the most fun mage in Smite. If you're on the fence of where to play him or not, here's a short montage to show you his potential. More of that at the end of the video. So, this guide should cover abilities and basic combos for Hades, as well as itemization and gameplay. Timestamps in the comments below, and chapters should allow for easy navigation throughout the video. Feel free to tell me that my opinion is garbage, or discuss topics with me as well. I like discussion. First up, abilities. Hades' passive is Blight. It leaves a lingering debuff that decreases the target's physical and magical power by 5%. The damage reduction is negligible, so don't worry much about that. Blight is applied when landing his basic attacks, 1 or 2. This passive is very important as it adds extra effects to each one of his abilities, so if you can, make sure to have this applied to your enemies before casting your spells on them. Hades 1, Death from Below, is a leap. Hades goes underground and pops up at your target location, dealing AoE damage and applying Blight. If targets were already blighted upon being hit by this move, they also get slowed. This is both your engage and your only escape. If you waste this ability and get engaged on, you will need to fight or die. Do not use this move alone to poke enemies. Use this one in tandem with the rest of his kit for max efficiency, since it sets up extra effects for every other ability. Pro tip. Despite Hades looking like he goes underground, since this is hard-coded as a leap, you can be snatched out of it by stuff like a Wheelix ult, so be careful using it around her. Hades 2, Shroud of Darkness, throws down AoE silence in a cone in front of him, also applying Blight. If the target was already blighted beforehand, the silence changes into a fear. The fear makes the opponent lose control of their character entirely, and they'll run away slowly, seemingly in a random direction. You can usually rely on them to run in the direction that they're facing, so if they're facing away from you, they'll run away from you. Facing you, they'll run towards you. This is an important detail that I'll call back on later. So, for this ability, you want to use it primarily to either knock enemies out of their wind-up animations for their abilities, prevent them from using their crucial abilities entirely, and or to guarantee your 3 as well as its extra damage. Shroud of Darkness is fairly important, since without this, the only other easy way to spread mass blight amongst your enemies is using your 1, which may not be optimal for every situation. It's also quite slow, and your enemies can very easily retaliate upon you since it's pretty telegraphed. This move is quick and prevents counterplay, if the opponent does become CC immune. Use this to set up your 3 and 4. Hades 3 is Devour Souls, or as I like to call it, the Stomp. Hades stomps, dealing AoE damage around him. But the fun part about this ability is when the target is already blighted beforehand. This ability will then detonate the blight and do an extra burst of damage to the enemy and anyone else around them. If you or your team get hit by this extra burst, you will receive an extra bit of healing for the detonation. This ability is Hades' bread and butter damage tool. Using it without Blight is a no-no unless you're going to kill an enemy god with the base damage from it alone. So make sure to apply Blight before stomping in order to get the extra heal and damage from your 3 for max efficiency. So, you know how I said that Blight can be applied to basically any enemy? If an enemy god is standing in a minion wave, you can use either your 1 or 2 to apply Blight to both the minions and the god and proceed to stomp to detonate the Blight and delete a chunk of their health bar. Or the entirety of it. Either or. Wow, let's tune in to see what Past Me had to say about that one-shot.
I just completely one-shot that stupid bitch.
God damn, Wizard of Oz. The way you talk to women, oh man, you must get tons of bitches, right? Wait, what did they just type in response to what you just said? What? Huh? Shit, I guess you do. Of course, remember that you don't have to use this purely for damage. You can detonate blights on minions or jungle camps in order to briefly heal before looking for your next engage once your cooldowns are back up. Last but not least, not the least at all, since this is basically what makes Hades a threat, is 4, Pillar of Agony, aka the Suck. In a large AoE around Hades, he starts sucking the souls out of enemies nearby, pulling them into him and dealing 8 ticks of damage over 4 seconds, while also reducing his cooldowns for 0.2 seconds with each enemy hit. If the target is blighted, the enemy's protections are reduced. Hades also gains protections and damage mitigation for the duration of his ultimate. This is Hades' most powerful ability by far. Use it when the enemy team has burned their escapes, or you need enough damage to 100 to 0 somebody. Or multiple somebodies. Late game, I don't even think that stomping a god in a full minion wave deals the same amount of damage as getting hit by all 8 ticks of his ult. This ability really hurts. If you get caught by it, you're usually dead. Which is why every time the enemy team sees Hades, you can bet on the fact that they'll all build Aegis beads to screw you over in particular. Since Hades' ult is CC, using beads just allows people to walk out of it. Aegis allows you to block 3 or 4 ticks of Hades' ult. It's still worse than just using beads, but hey, maybe it'll save your life. Aw, shut the fuck up and stop ranting in my guide. Is that seriously important information? Yeah, it is. That anecdote is important to the guide, because Aegis and beads are Hades' natural enemy. The Aegis negating your stomp damage hurts you a lot, and the beads just flat out make your ult practically worthless, especially if the enemy has a leap. And they likely will, since every other character has a leap or some form of CC immunity in their kit. More on that later when I talk about how to actually play the game. Next up, basic combos. This is your bread and butter combo. The enemy looks vulnerable and you won't take damage that will outright murder you afterwards? Do this. The fear from the 2 guarantees that they can't escape the damage from your 3 without popping a relic or something. If the enemy is in a group or in the middle of the minion wave and you want to keep your dash to escape or chase them, do this. This combo leaves you with a way to get deeper in, or to get out, since you don't burn your 1 during it. This is also going to be one of your main poke combos. This is your first teamfight engage combo. Very standard. You do lots of damage even before you ult, and by the time it finishes casting, your abilities will only be a couple of seconds off of being back up, or if you got enough CDR or something, they'll be back up by the time it ends. This usually allows you to perform basic combo 1 or 2 after this, depending on what the situation needs. This is your burst teamfight engage combo. If you're using this combo, then you need to chase after the enemy after they react to your engage, which is why I left 1 as your last ability to use. Of course, if chasing isn't a good option, you can also just use the 1 to run away instead. You have many options out of this. Finally, you can weave in autos in between each of these combos. This grants you extra damage and can potentially allow you to one-shot squishies in one combo with the added damage from the auto attacks. This is also just a flat-out good practice to have for MOBA games in general, since auto attack cancelling is an important skill for maximizing damage from any player character's combos, really. So, with that out of the way, let's get to itemization plus some commentary. The meta build for Hades at the time that I wrote the script is Tainted Breastplate, Book of Thoth, Bancroft's Claw, Typhon's Fang, Polynomicon, and then Rod of Tahuti. I mostly agree with this, but I personally don't run this build because I don't feel like buying Tainted Steel is usually worth it. So, first up, the best use case. You're up against Surtur or something in the Soul Lane, so you have an opportunity to reduce his healing with your Tainted Steel while offering a bit of protection from being solo killed. When you hit level 20, you reduce his and every other god with healing by 50%. Nice. Optimal buy. You and your team won't have much trouble popping targets like Surtur that have lots of healing in their kit, since their healing won't outmatch the burst and DPS of your team. You should run the starter item in cases like that. But in other cases where there's like only a Sylvanas for healing and you're versus Gilgamesh or something, Tainted Steel is a worthless buy. It basically gets no value, and you're just buying it for the protections at that point. Book of Thoth is a good item. Fully upgraded and combined with Bancroft's Claw, Typhon's Fang, and Polynomicon, you'll be gaining upwards of 200 magical power from that item alone. The pin from the item is also absolutely fucking sexo for dealing extra damage to enemies with magical protections. You're trolling if you buy that starter item every game, but otherwise the build is pretty good. My bread and butter build that I generally like to run is more fitting of a Drain Tank / Assassin Burst Mage kind of playstyle. I like to run Sacrificial Shroud, Bancroft's Claw, Typhon's Fang, Polynomicon, Rod of Tahuti, and then Spear of Desolation. For early game, Vampiric Shroud and the Tiny Trinket allow you to make mistakes more freely since your sustain is absolutely insane. Early fights are also good since you can usually heal up most of the damage you took from the previous one by just using your 2 on the wave and stomping. If your opponent's damage is weak, them punishing you for healing is also negated by the healing as well. Vampiric Shroud consistently gets value in all games, which is why I use it as a base, and then swap to Tainted Steel if there's like 2 or 3 tanky guys that like to heal on the enemy team. Then I'll swap to more of a bruisery build for that game, because this build is absolutely worthless if you can't kill anyone. But assuming that you've got like 3 or 4 squishies to one-shot on the enemy team, then let's continue. Sacrificial Shroud grants 15% more dash to your abilities at the cost of 5% of your maximum health per proc. If you're building this, you'll have enough healing to basically negate the cost, making it negligible. The added burst from this item adds a bit of consistency to making your combo one-shot, even without auto-attack cancels. This is a straight-up sexo item. You don't always have to build Vampiric Shroud into this though. If you feel like one of the more situational items would outperform the passive that this provides, then you should sell Vampiric Shroud for it. Bancroft's Talon is a core item of Hades for a reason. You can gain up to 200 magical power and 35% lifesteal from the item at low HP, which synergizes with Hades very well since he has a very up-close and personal kind of playstyle. That means you're going to be taking lots of damage whether you want to or not, so you'll be constantly utilizing the Bancroft's passive without ever even thinking about it. Now, the upgrade to Bancroft's Claw makes this item insane since you get up to 35% of your total HP as a shield depending on how many gods you use your abilities around. There's also a bit of damage attached to this upgrade, but nobody seriously cares about that. The shield will mitigate the initial burst of damage you'll take when engaging, allowing you to live longer and get off more of your damage before you die. All of that combined makes Bancroft's Talon a premium sexo item. Typhon's Fang enhances the healing from your lifesteal by 25% and increases your magical power by 2 times the amount of lifesteal you currently have. Combined with most of the other items you'll be building, this is a premium sexo buy. Enough said. Polynomicon grants 75% of your magical power as extra damage on your next basic attack. This is the key component that consistently allows Hades to one-shot squishies in one combo. This is an absolutely sexo item since it substantially enhances your normal gameplay loop. Remember how I was talking about the direction of where enemies run when feared? Knowing that is critical for being able to get value out of your Polynomicon autos since they deal a substantial chunk of your burst. Missing them hurts you a lot, so make sure to get lots of practice hitting Odin in jungle practice or something. Rod of Tahuti. This gives you 25% additional damage to targets below 50% health. From what I've seen, this also applies to Polynomicon as well as your abilities and basic attacks. This adds extra consistency to one-shotting squishies. The pin from this item also helps against tanks. Sexo item, enough said. Spear of Desolation. If you receive a killer assist on an enemy god, your normal abilities cooldowns are reduced by 2 seconds, and your ultimate's cooldown is reduced by 6 seconds. This item further enhances the reset gameplay that I like to go for with this build, and reduces the downtime of your ult, making you a more consistently powerful threat the later the game goes on. The pin and the cooldown reduction make it pretty sexo. Last but not least for relics and stuff, I run Blink and Belt of Frenzy along with the Horn Shard. I upgrade Blink and the Belt into the Corrupted Blink rune, and the Belt to the Berserker respectively. You're taking Blink in all games, straight up no negotiations. It allows you a way to get close to enemies without burning your one, allowing you to use it as an extra engage tool. It's too useful not to take. I usually run Belt to the Berserker in order to enhance my initial burst when I want to start a fight. It's not uncommon to use basic combo 4 and one-shot a squishy or 2 when you first cast your 3, or just flat out kill them with the Polynomicon basic attack after that, or the first tick of the ult after that. If they survive, then they pop Aegis guaranteed. But I don't always run Belt to the Berserker in all situations. In games where there's like Thor, Kronos, the unholy one! I mean Chang'e, or just someone who can stun you and proceed to insta-kill you if you're not able to retaliate, I'll decide if it's worth it to just take beads over the Belt. Horn Shard is really good for early game because you can get some kills you wouldn't get otherwise by just having your abilities up those couple of seconds faster. It isn't uncommon to chunk someone at level 4, pop this, blink it to the enemy team to do it again, and proceed to kill them. This also allows you to escape sometimes when your dash is down and you're caught out. This is substantially better than every other shard. Claw Shard is the only other one like even slightly worth considering, but it just gets stomped by the consistency that this offers. Finally, situational builds. You can usually swap Spear of Desolation or the Vampiric Shroud for these items unless it's specified when to buy them. Build Spear the Magus if you seriously need someone dead like a Kronos or a Charybdis. Add in Belt to the Berserker and it's impossible for squishies to survive your burst without instantly popping Aegis the moment they see you on their screen. Staff of Mirrodin grants decaying bonus damage after your ult is finished casting. It's neat if the enemy team won't be insta-killed by your initial engage and you need a bit of power to finish off your enemies after you ult. Your damage after you ult is ridiculous and cleanups are easy. Penetration plus CDR also makes the item straight up sexo. Warlock Staff is a tankier alternative to Book of Thoth. Comparing both maxed out versions, you may or may not lose 40 or so magical damage along with 800 mana, but you gain 225 health in return. Losing the mana isn't all that important since if you run out of mana with Hades post Bancroft's Talon, don't take an IQ test is all I'm saying, because if you do, then I can legally call you a retard without repercussions. Having 40 less magic damage may leave squishies 1 HP at times, but you're not building this to one-shot squishies. Build Book of Thoth if you want that. You're building this item for extra survivability. If you're ever building this item, or Book of Thoth, make sure to get their initial components as your second item over the tiny trinket at the beginning of the game in order to get to stacking them ASAP. Then build as normal. I will not lie, I got curious about the overall difference between these two items while editing this video, so apologies if this breaks the flow of the video a bit. Here's a segment of me doing and analyzing the math for these two items in order to see which is truly better than the other. So basically, Warlocks is just better overall initially as an item. Book's magical power is 5 less than Warlocks, and Warlocks also gives HP, increasing Hades survivability, while you're just a glass cannon with Book of Thoth. Warlocks is looking better so far. Surprisingly, once again, Evolved Warlocks outclasses base Evolved Book. The only edge base Evolved Book has over Evolved Warlocks is mana, but you don't need that much mana on Hades, take my word for it. But Evolved Book slowly but surely starts outscaling Evolved Warlocks one item in. Once you start building the other items that give you mana, Book has 47 magical power over Warlocks. So honestly, I'd say that Warlocks is even better than Book in general, unless you just need to hyper carry a game. It gives you survivability along with a fair amount of damage while you're just all in on damage completely using Book of Thoth. But if you need a hyper carry build, I'd suggest running Pendulum of Ages, Book of Thoth, Bancrofts, Typhons, Polynomicon, and Spear of Desolation. If you mess up, you're screwed, but if you play perfect, it's pentakills galore in my eyes. Only play this into 5 squishies. This is a for fun build that I thought up on the spot. Test this out yourself and see how it works. I doubt you're going to be winning Grandmaster Conquest games with this build or anything, but you'll definitely shit stomp an arena or something. The Bruiser build I mentioned a while ago should look like this. Tainted Steel into either of its upgrades depending on what you need, Warlock Staff, Spear of Desolation, and Mail of Renewal. Maybe swap in Bancroft's Claw as the third item and build Spear of Desolation 5th if you need. The 6th slot is whatever item you need in that situation to win, whether it be more damage, utility, or defense. So, here's the thought process for this build. It's utility focused and it covers a little bit of everything. Tainted Steel, Warlock Staff, and Mail of Renewal make you fairly tanky, so you won't get insta-killed. You get Spear of Desolation to spam your abilities as much as possible for utility's sake, while also giving you a little bit of damage. Bancroft's Claw gives you both damage and survivability, making it a viable option for this build. I find that playing Hades into tanks is pure suffering since you deal no damage to them and you just get stat checked if you don't have your ult up 24/7. So by going into this build, you're basically accepting that you're going to be playing for your team the entire game, peeling and keeping important targets from killing your ADC primarily, and maybe your mid if they actually deal damage to tanks. Last thing for this itemization section, the new mage items introduced in Season 10 of Smite are garbage for Hades in particular, so don't buy them. If you want my thoughts on every item for Hades, I'm gonna need you to cough up like 500 likes in order for me to make that video. Now, last but not least, how to play as Hades. Conquest. Solo is the best role for Hades, jungle is the second best. ADC and support aren't like too bad. Mid is absolutely garbage though. In lane, if your opponent is melee, look to use the first combo to burst them while pushing the wave if they attack your melee minions in the middle of theirs. If they fight back, they just flat out lose because they'll take minion aggro, and minion damage in Smite is OP. Otherwise, use the second combo to poke them whenever you can. Save your ult for if they use their dash in a stupid way, or if their jungler comes. If the enemy is ranged, poke them with the first combo when they stand by their ranged minions, and just play passive and kill minion waves otherwise. Blink on them and kill them if they're low enough for it. If the jungler comes to gank you, and they use their dash to engage on you, combo 4 and murder them right in front of their enemy laner, and then kill the enemy laner afterwards. If you don't have ult or you're low HP, you should run though. Mid game, you want to group up with your team when your ult is up. Otherwise, you're worthless and you'll get dumpstered on by every other guy in the game at this point in time. So just farm side lanes and jungle camps until you get stuff like Polynomicon and Rive Tahuti so that you become a real god without your ultimate. When your ult is up, you're strong, and when your ult is down, you're nigh worthless. Late game. You've got both damage pots, the defensive pot, and your full build. Nice. Look for picks and side lanes on crucial targets. You are disgustingly strong. Probably strong enough to 1v1 any enemy god in your game if you play it right. You should be engaging teamfights by popping berserkers, blinking into the enemy team, silencing them, and ulting them if you think you're about to get CC'd, or stomping and then ulting if you think you won't. After that, you either single-handedly won or lost the game for your team, and there's nothing more I can do to help you. You're one of the strongest gods in the game at this point if you're able to get your damage off before dying, so as long as you're doing your job properly, you should win the game sooner or later. Congrats! You made it through the bulk of the information. Now, with all that I've taught you, even you can pull off plays like these.
It's got nothing to do with me. And I feel it so violently. It's got nothing to do with me.
Thank you everyone for watching my guide. I'm fairly new to content creation and this is like the first real video that I've put like a lot of effort into making. I hope it was fun to watch, if nothing else. If you want to see me putting my teachings to practice, you can come watch me live at twitch.tv/theunknownhaunts. I don't think I'll stream consistently, but if I get enough subs to get a community tab, I'll make sure to drop when I'm streaming ahead of time. I've got some things planned for my channel in the future, but I think I'll focus on having fun and Smite until I get other options that I want to make content out of. Once again, thanks for watching me, and see ya.